Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Spectrum Every Age, Every Need. I am Sean Francis, and I'm your host. Today it's just me, and this is going to be a little shorter than usual. I am going to be talking about um, not just our upcoming event known as Someday is Today, but a little bit about what that movement and initiative is all about, and to share how it all came to be. I'm not sure if most people are aware of how I got into financial services to begin with. As you know, that is my primary work, and I am committed and dedicated to building a bridge between the special needs and caregiving community and financial literacy, service, education, and opportunity. So we will jump right into it in just a minute. All right, let's get right into it. Let's see. Before we get started, I want to thank our community partners, Billy Footwear, who are the makers of fine adaptive footwear for all. The story of the founder, Billy Price, is one of amazing courage and inspiration. Billy was paralyzed his first week of college, and as a result of a catastrophic accident, had to learn how to do everything for himself all over again, and he did so with the exception of putting shoes on his feet. A prototype was made and Billy Footwear was born, and they sold over 1 million pair of shoes and have touched just as many, if not more, lives. If you click on the link in the show notes, you will get 10% off your final purchase at billyfootwear.com. We also want to welcome our new community partners, Soul Grain. We had the founders Lisa, Maya, and Sylvia Williams on our last episode, and we had a great conversation with them. Soul Grain is a brand of granola, but it's not just a brand of granola. It's a healthy food that has fantastic ingredients and great flavors. And my first order is actually on its way. If you click on the link in the show notes, you will get 10% off your final purchase with them as well. And as you know, caregivers, we talk about making sure that you put your mask on first when you're on a plane so that you can help those around you from a place of strength. A drowning man um, can't help anybody else if he doesn't know how to swim. The same thing applies here in terms of us having nourishment and good ingredients inside us in terms of food that we consume as caregivers. So go ahead and click on the show notes to get your discount at Soul Grain. So we've hosted myself and Brian Altunian, who co-hosted my previous podcast, Just Two Dads, working in financial services. We've held several events that have been designed to build and bring financial literacy to families. And those events are entitled Someday is Today. For those that are not aware, I am a financial professional. I have almost 20 years of experience. This September will make it 20 years. And it's interesting enough, my son Elijah will be 20 next month, and he was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. And when I got into financial services, it wasn't something that I was looking for. I, quite frankly, I'm originally from the U.S. Virgin Islands, from St. Thomas. I didn't go to college. Um, Went through a variety of jobs, and in terms of just finding myself, what I want to do is share some of how I got to where I am, and then share the event and give you the opportunity to register for it. So I, as I mentioned, came from the Virgin Islands. In the Caribbean, education is a very big deal. And so I, when I struggled academically, there was this problem, this conflict, trying to figure out exactly what was wrong with me as a child. And more important, not what was wrong with me from my parents' standpoint. I think it was just trying to figure out how can we best help and support our child to thrive and be independent. And when I look back on it, I must have been just the greatest worry, because while I could hold conversation intelligently and everything, um, I never did well academically. I shouldn't say never, rarely. So much so that when I did, it would even frustrate my dad because he would say, "You could do this all the time if you really tried." And as far as I knew, I really was trying. Well, anyway, fast forward a bit. I finish high school. I attend college at in the Virgin Islands for I think like maybe two classes. That's about it. I go to a trade school in Minneapolis for radio and television broadcasting. Kind of go through that because my original goal was to be in entertainment. Figured I should have something to kind of fall back on. So I did that. I liked the idea of writing and creating, but nothing ever really clicked. And fast forward, my wife and I meet. She has two daughters from her previous marriage. And she made a comment once about how important it is for one parent to be able to stay home. And I thought, that's, a great idea. I think it makes sense. But that was about it. And I was working in a corporate environment. I was working for a company by the name of Countrywide Home Loans. They were the largest mortgage lender in the nation at the time. This is 2005 is when we got married. And when our son Elijah came along in 2006, the state of California allows you to take paid family leave as a father. This gives you, I think it's within the first months of the child's life, you have a certain amount of weeks to take time off and bond with your child and still be paid. And my wife had already returned to work from maternity leave. So I did that and I had my resume on the open market as well as within Countrywide because I was looking for something where I could. I was kind of topped out to begin with in the department that I was in, and I was looking for something where I could um, control my time and really wanted to make more money more than anything else. But when Elijah was born, it was also about time because I started to try and wrap my head around the idea of him being with someone that we didn't know. My mom and stepdad were working at the time, so we didn't have a family member that we could leave him with. And so I found an opportunity in financial services. And that wasn't something I was thinking about because numbers bored me. But the idea of helping people and making an impact in someone's life really excited me. And I learned that the industry generally works um, as follows: as an agent or an advisor, you have quotas that you have to meet. You work usually for a captive entity where it's just a company, one company, and you usually have minimums that clients have to have in order for you to work with them. And you usually focus on what is called assets under management. So, in other words, what can you get from them to invest, charge a fee, and make money, whether they make a lot, lose some, or lose all. And I wasn't crazy about that. And I didn't realize that the industry worked that way, and I didn't realize that there was anything that was the antithesis to that, which would be a polar opposite. So I found an opportunity where I got to work with multiple providers, and I didn't just focus on assets under management. I could do that, but then look at life insurance, short and long term savings, um, a variety of things, and included estate planning, all those things. And shortly after Elijah was diagnosed, I thought if families with neurotypical children need to know how to plan for their future at a time when parents exist only in memory and know how to put their money to work for them as opposed to just the other way around, then it's probably twice as important in our community for those of us who are caregivers and have children with special needs. The problem is this: I am someone who, for the majority of my life, has really cared what other people think about me. I think at the very least, I just really wanted to be liked, and I think that stems from being in a situation where not only did I not get good grades, but my attention was always elsewhere when I was in a classroom. So very often, as teachers do, when they realize that you're not paying attention, they will say, and Mr. Francis, what is the capital of so and so? Or what is such and such? An answer that was just given. Well, then I'm left with two choices: either to guess or be honest and say that I don't know. And if I guess and the answer is right, great. But if I don't know and I give the wrong answer or I say that I don't know, then what everyone will do, as children do, is they laugh. And those things affected me more than I realized over a period of time. And I've come to realize this just recently as I shared my own diagnosis recently of ADHD. And so what happened is nothing ever affected me to a point where I held my head in shame on any constant basis, especially once I became an adult. But because I held my head high and I was confident, generally speaking, it made it more difficult to identify the areas in which I was not confident. And so I was in a new industry. My son had a diagnosis that was new. So we were new to the autism and special needs community. And I kind of got over the idea of anybody questioning my intention or not receiving me well from a sales standpoint, generally speaking, with the general public, because I saw value in the things that we did. I saw value in um, a family being able to not have to have a GoFundMe when a loved one passes away, and then having money left over that is tax free, having money that they can have access to while that loved one is still alive, being able to have income for life if money is put into the right vehicle, being able to have the right estate plan put in place so that when you pass away, your final wishes are executed to the letter, all those things. I saw value in all of that. But within the special needs community, if there's one person that was going to question my integrity or my intention, I just felt like I couldn't deal with that. So um, it took some time, but I kind of got over that because I had some success, generally speaking. And then my advocacy grew as well. So now it's been 19, almost 20 years. And what's happened in that time is we've hosted several events, and we've impacted many lives. And I've sat on the Autism Parents Advisory Board of Children's Hospital of LA. I served as an ambassador with Autism Speaks. And then I was also a 2024 fellow with Caring Across Generations. And I've also advocated in very unofficial ways. And I think the way that many of us should is that if we learn something and benefit from it, we should pass that on to others. I'm a firm believer in the words of the great Muhammad Ali that service to others is the rent we pay for our room here on earth. And so, with that, I've been able to add value as I go along, and I will continue to do that as I learn. I will never be anybody's expert or guru because I believe that experts are people that know everything, and if you know everything, there's nothing to learn. There's nothing to learn, then you're alive but not living, and you're limiting what you can add to other people as well because they see you as perfect. So, um, what's taking place on the 22nd and 23rd is the latest event with um, Someday is Today. And Someday is Today has generally been a presentation, a financial literacy event. And that is what it is. But at the same time, it's more. So as you can see, if you're looking at this on our YouTube channel as opposed to just listening to it, there's a logo on the screen, usually where you would see our logo for Beyond the Spectrum. And that is because Someday is Today is now more of an official movement, an initiative for caregivers altogether. Having the pleasure of doing this podcast and before it, the predecessor, Just Two Dads, I have been reminded of exactly what a caregiver is. There's a large percentage of the community that doesn't even identify themselves as caregivers. And that may be because of our cultural background, where we just see ourselves as good family members who are doing what one would do. You're a dutiful son or daughter that is helping care for an elderly parent. You're just a parent who is caring for a child, which is how I viewed my wife and I. But the truth of the matter is, anyone for whom you are giving care that they are unable to give to themselves, you're a caregiver. And anyone who lives a remotely long life, if being a caregiver or special needs or anything like that sounds foreign to you, if you're blessed with a remotely long life, you will get membership into our community, whether it's temporary because of an injury of your own, or it is because of an ailment or illness or diagnosis for you or a loved one, or just your own old age. So anything that matters to the general population matters to those of us in this community 10 times more so. So the other thing that's happened over the years is that, in the beginning, I was really petrified, really, and I mean deathly afraid of anyone questioning my intentions when it came to trying to serve this community. But I realized over time that I can't serve people to my fullest capacity if I wonder about what someone might say. And I heard it said recently that, what people do is they believe that their confidence will come from their accolades, sometimes their net worth, which is what they use to measure their self worth. And the truth of the matter is, what we should be confident about is our intentions. If our intentions are in the best place. Now, it's also been said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's not enough just to have good intentions. Have good intentions and continue to grow so that you're not stuck on just what you know. And I know that my intention is in the right place. So I've completely gotten over that. And I've been able to see exactly how families are helped. But as opposed to having Someday Today just be an event, the intention is for it to be a movement to better the lives of those in the special needs and caregiving community. And when it comes to the event itself, even from the financial piece, what we're going to be talking about is looking at the way we see ourselves and our relationship with money. Most of us operate from experience, and we are not our accolades. We're not our net worth. We're not the experiences that we've had. What we are quite frankly, and I'm not trying to get too deep or heavy here, but we're more than who we are in flesh. We are souls. We are more than anything that we are here physically on earth. And so the time here is very limited. So we want to maximize that. And I'm sure everybody feels that way. But when it comes to putting the best plan in place to make sure that our future is taken care of and that we leave our loved ones a legacy as opposed to a liability, that's something that most of us figure that we'll get to someday. Someday. But especially for us, why shouldn't someday be today? Right? So we're going to talk about maybe the way some of us see ourselves and how we think and trying to improve that. And then also the way that we look at and view money. And that can be a very difficult thing to talk about for most people. And part of it is because most of us tie our net worth um, to our self worth. And for some people, it means that if they're making a lot of money, it means that they see so much in themselves and they're so tied to that. For those that aren't making a lot, they feel little or less than because there isn't enough of it. So we'll address that. But the other thing that we'll look at is life insurance, the myths around it, and separate that from the truth. There are so many myths around it. Life insurance is as misunderstood as it is important and vital. And we're going to cut through a lot of the untruths that are out there about that. There's a whole lot of that on social media. We're going to talk about short and long term savings. Is your money put someplace where it can outpace inflation? Is it put someplace where you minimize what you're having to give up on taxes? You know that there's places where you can actually put money where it gets a decent rate of return, outpaces inflation, and then you don't have to pay taxes on on that money that you take and the growth as well. There's also options where you can put money where you can actually literally get income for life for the rest of your life, literally. There are also vehicles out there that can serve for business solutions. If you have a business, especially if you have a business and you're a caregiver, do you have an exit strategy? Do you have a business or does that business have you? What is the plan to leave that business and get to a point where you may work only because you want to, but not because you have to? All of those things. And then what does it mean when it comes to protecting benefits, generally speaking? Most of the programs that are in place for us from an income standpoint, a monetary standpoint, as caregivers, they encourage us and quite frankly scare most of us into thinking very small and limited. Because if you have over a certain amount, then you lose those benefits. Well, there are places that the money can be put so that you grow it and you still retain those benefits. Okay. And then the other thing that takes place is for those that have Medicare, if you have too many assets, depending on the year and whether you're single or married, you might find yourself in a situation where you have to spend down in order to qualify for Medicare if you don't have enough money saved for retirement. Or what does it mean to spend down? It sounds like, again, something that can scare the mess out of you because you think I need to get rid of some of what I have. If it's done right, there are places where those funds can be reallocated as opposed to anything else, where the benefits can still be protected and held on to. So we're going to be talking about those things and a whole lot more. And we just want to take advantage of the opportunity to try and, you know, improve people's lives and our way of thinking. And that's what the event will be. And if you look in the show notes, the link will be there for you to register as well. It's free of charge. There's going to be one event for the East Coast and then one for the West Coast. I hope to see you there. And that you'll hopefully join us as we go forth, as we build this community known as Someday is Today. And again, thank you to our partners, Soul Grain and Billy Footwear. Check on the links in the show notes so that you can get the discount at your final purchase. And then for those of you that are men or you know someone who is a male, a dad, and or caregiver to someone with a disability or special needs, we encourage you to join us for our bi-weekly men's group known as The Den. That is free of charge, and the link will also be in the show notes as well. Thank you so very much.